Good afternoon. At this time, I'd like to call the work session of September 4th, 2024 to order. Lawson. He is not. We'd like to then have the roll call.
I can give roll call.
If you would, please, Camp, if you would call the roll.
Mr. Groneman,
Here.
Mr. Haley,
Present.
thanks. Ms. Henry,
Here.
Mr. Parker,
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Here.
Thank you, Robert Camp. Before I ask for a motion to approve the work session agenda of today, of September 4th, 2024, are there any comments on the agenda?
Rose, I move to approve.
Brett, second.
If, Ms. Camp, if you, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Lawson is back with us. Angela, can you call the roll, please?
Roll call, Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Wakes,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
That motion carries.
This time, do I turn this over? It says we have an update, general manager's update. But are there any updates before we get to Mr. Johnson? Do we have any updates from the board members that they'd like to share at this time? Any online like to share any updates?
Not at this time.
All right, then any updates from
No,
Johnson?
no staff updates so we'll just go ahead and get directly to the customer service comments. I'll turn it over to the committee chair, Rose.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Senator Haley, thank you. So this is, as the board knows, the policy review committee has a very long undertaking since last fall, has gone through cover to cover the customer service policies of the Board of Public Utilities. And we have endeavored to revise and update these policies to bring them, dare I say, a little bit more current and perhaps even more with a customer focus to them. And I know that the board has not had an opportunity to go through these. And so what the committee wanted to be able to do was to allow the board ample time to go through the documents, see where revisions have been made, and, collect your thoughts on them, collect your questions on them and comments. And then we can meet again at the subsequent work session in a couple of weeks, hopefully. I know we've got a million things going on, but we're going to have to fit this one in too, because, the staff that is all here for BPU has put in a lot of time and effort as well. And so we want to make sure that we make good on all of this effort that's put into it. I will stop right there. I've got a couple of other remarks to give, but I will stop right there to see if, Brett, you're also on the committee, if you have any other preliminary remarks you'd like to make or comments.
No, I think the committee did really great work. Really appreciate all of the staff time that went into it. I think in a lot of instances, it was getting the policies to match some of the modernizing that's already been done. And just making sure that those two things line up nicely. But as Rose mentioned, in a handful of instances, also perhaps charting a bit of a new path and just with a focus of, customer friendliness. And I think it will be a great resource for folks who, if they have a question they need answered, it may yield that answer with a little bit more plain reading.
Point of record, Mr. Wakes.
I'm sorry?
I was just making sure that you were recorded as joining Mr. Wakes.
You were making sure that what?
That you were recorded as joined, you weren't here for the initial. roll.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I thought when he called the roll the second time for the that when I answered yes, it was recorded that I was
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay.
Could you?
Yes.
And so I didn't know if any other board member had any other preliminary remarks they would like to make this evening. Again, I know you all haven't had an opportunity to review the document yet, so.
Okay.
Yes.
I did want to express my sincere appreciation to the board members who worked so diligently on this particular policy to try to make it more customer sensitive. There were a few things on there that I had real concerns about, and probably still do, but want to make sure that I get a chance to really read through the entire policy before I make any comments on those. But want to express my sincere appreciation to, because this is something that we've heard customers talking about for a long time, and me being one of those customers, one of the areas of concern that I had even prior to becoming part of the board. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Board Member Wakes, appreciate that. So a couple of additional remarks. Stevie, I know that you had requested that the fee schedule be passed around and Chris has done that. So we actually have physically a copy of the existing fee schedule that is in place. What I do not see in the materials, and we will get that to the full board, is the revised fee schedule, unless I'm misreading this fee schedule that was passed out. Am I misreading it?
No, that's what's currently on the list.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And, so before I get to that, and I had asked, I'm fumbling around over here, Lori, because I don't know if you're ready, but, oh, perfect. She is. So I had asked, just probably not even 30 minutes ago, if Lori could pull together some numbers regarding, the bad debt write-off that this utility undergoes on an annual basis for the last 3 years. And so Lori, please jump in and if you could give us those numbers, and then I've got some statements after that.
When you do look at the last 3 years, so this is coming out of COVID and all of the monies.
For the sake of those who are listening,
So-
identify.
This is Lori Austin, Chief Financial Officer. So for the last 3 years, we were coming out of COVID and all of the money that had been distributed out of all the programs that were out there. We were seeing our bad debt drop significantly. People were getting money back and it was creating credits on their account. So we had some negative AR over 120 days. That's how we determine the bad debt is. So we had, up to almost $500,000 of credit that was out there for our long-term, our customers over AR over 120 days. It has since kind of started creeping up again. So I would say our bad debt in 2021 was about 290,000. Our bad debt in 2022 was about 730,000. And in 23 it was about 550,000.
550 for 2023. Thank you. Okay. And the reason, this is not going to shock anyone. The reason I asked Lori to present that information to the board in this work session tonight is because, this policy review committee, along with the staff, we all have an obligation, and as board members, we have a fiduciary responsibility to this utility and to our community regarding how this utility's finances are managed. And so, there's a lot of discussion right now, in our community about resources and funding and, possibly not having enough to do X, Y, or Z. And, this is just a tiny example of the backdrop of what is behind some of the customer service policies that we have reviewed and attempted to revise keeping all of that, here, because that's first and foremost. We would love to be able to, and Senator, I know you're going to chime in on this at some point. We would love to be able to give away free utilities in this community. We are not there, right? We are not there as a utility. We're not there as a community. And that's not how this is working. And so, because we can't, we have to collect, our cost of service to provide these utilities, to the community. So I say all
Rose?
that. Yes.
I'm sorry, Lori, can we get that broken down by class? Residential, commercial, and industrial?
I don't have that available tonight, but
I think that would be helpful to us as well. To me, I know it would.
Okay. Lori, if you'd follow up with that, that would be great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Great question, Stevie. So one of the things that the staff took the initiative of doing, and it's not reflected in this fee document that's here, and y'all don't have a copy of the revised one yet. You will. It's not quite finished, but the biggest thing from it is this. Staff took it upon themselves because what we're hearing from people in the community is, why do you have to collect deposit, right? Why do you have to do credit checks? Why do you have to collect deposits? Why do you have to do these things? And, answers vary on that as to why that has to be, but I want to put this against the backdrop of, again, the bad debt that the utility accumulates over a period of time. And so what the staff has done is created a category for residential homeowners where there is it's a green category, right? So there's no credit risk associated with this applicant, or there's no credit history associated with this applicant. So what happens is and this is BPU does this, Evergy does this, Kansas Gas Service does this. Dare I say, all of your wireless companies do this, and I know that for a fact. I can speak to that one, Abby. You provide information to the utility, and they are doing a soft credit check with a third party, is what they're doing. And this does not do a hit against your credit report. This is a soft credit check where they check various data. And this third party spits out essentially what that risk is associated with this particular applicant. So prior to this new change, there was not this category for folks with no credit or folks that showed that as a result of that soft credit check came back as a risk. Okay. And so I believe what the default would have been under that, well, I guess under the current structure, is there's automatically a deposit that's applied to the account. Am I right? You guys you're the people. Okay, that's right. Okay. So what staff has proposed is for those two categories at this point in time going forward, that's a zero deposit. Zero. Okay. So there is a whole new category of deposit that is labeled as zero. Those two categories. Okay. So we have green. They label these green, yellow, red, and that's because that's what the third party labels these as. And so green is little risk, no credit, right? Yellow is sort of a limited liability risk. And then red would be sort of a substantial liability risk, all based off of these soft credit checks. I'm going to stop there and ask if any board members who are not on the committee have any questions about that or have any comments about that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This is David. So the proposal going from where we are now,
Yes.
which extracts a deposit from everyone, does everyone pay a deposit today? Every
No.
customer? So what is the distinction between those that currently, don't?
It's based on this third party that comes back and basically assesses what the credit risk is of this applicant based on the information provided. Please tell me, staff, if I'm saying it incorrect. All right.
Secondly, thank you. Secondly, it's my understanding that everyone who is in the particular service household over a particular age has previously been required to make application. Is that still everyone over the age of 18 must provide, or at one point in time had to provide their information, their social security number? And is that still the policy?
It's only if they're listed on the paperwork.
Do you have a mic? Can you turn that on, please?
And please say, regard, Gabby.
This is Gabrielle agreement. We only require the information for people that are listed on the lease agreement or the settlement statement. So it's not everyone in the household, just the people that are listed,
So
or
children,
18 years of age or older.
so children or someone over 18 living in the household need not place.
If they're not listed on there. If they're listed on there, then yes, we would require their information.
So will this third party, should this be implemented, still, can one person, in other words, then be shifted to be responsible for the account if the third party comes back with the red, yellow, and green? Or would it amortize, or would it assist for what the deposit might be if the current policy is then employed, where everyone listed is considered?
I think
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You put the best
We
foot
always-
forward. You probably put the best foot forward.
We
to
run
get it.
everyone's credit, and then whoever has the best credit will determine the deposit.
Right.
Can I just clarify that for a second?
Mhm.
When she says we run everyone's credit, what she means is we provide this information to a third party and that third party assesses the credit risk of the applicant. Okay? I want to be clear about that
Yes.
because, you know, folks are, BPU does not need any help. And I know you know this, Dave. BPU does not need any help with respect to, how it conducts itself in the marketplace and how folks view it as a utility. To be fair, Evergy doesn't need any help doing that either. But I want to be clear about that because I don't want people thinking that our customer service team is sitting at, you know, monitors doing this thing, because they're not, okay? I want to be really clear about that. And this is the same process every other major utility follows throughout the country. Okay? I want to be really clear about that. So we're all clear that BPU is not doing anything that is just so different than what the rest of the industry is actually doing. Okay?
Well, I may have some misinformation, but I have been informed that we are unique in running everyone over a particular age. I'm not quite sure what you mean on the policy as household, but everyone over that we are distinct. BPU is, because there are allegedly other utilities that don't take that into account, everyone over and don't run their
Yeah.
as well.
Go ahead.
Just those that are signing up are on the lease.
And
If they come in to sign up and three people all want to be on there because they want information and access to the account, then they're on there and they're gonna be, and correct me,
And
you're gonna have, thank you, you're gonna have a credit check run on them.
And I certainly hate to put, you know, one of our newest, staff members on the spot as I have literally for the last several days. But Abby, you know, comes to us from an outside utility, as you know. And so I think, I mean, you may as well hear from the horse's mouth. Like what she, with Kansas Gas, Evergy and Westar and then Evergy, right? So
Yeah,
please.
yeah, thank you, Rose. Abby Fry. So they do run those for people on the account. Let me just offer an example. So on a lease agreement, if you have three people who are living in the same apartment, they're going to college together and you have three people, that offers protection to all three of those people. So one person doesn't get stuck with that utility bill. I have seen many college roommates turn into college enemies because it didn't end well. And somebody moves out, somebody leaves, trying to leave one person with the bill. So there's a protection there by doing that and making sure that everybody who's on the lease or who's on the mortgage is protected and covered in that stance.
And that makes sense to me. So, thank you.
And David, there's been always the conversation about BPU following the KCC rule. KCC should be over, looking at what we're doing.
Yes.
Well, this marries up well what the KCC requires of everybody else. And she actually came from a regulated, two regulated utilities that have to report to the KCC. So
Thank you.
I might also like to point out or remind people that if they sign up for the Flex Pay, there's no deposit. And to my knowledge, that being the case, there would be no background checks. So if they don't want to go through the background check or whatever, they could get on the Flex Pay. No deposit.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually have that as a point, so thank you for getting to it early.
I apologize.
No, I appreciate that, sir. I appreciate that.
Just in case.
Yes.
I do want to clarify. So if they are setting up FlexPay, say they're a brand new customer, we still will send their social security number over just to verify it really is their social and they're not trying to use someone else's social to set up service. So when we do the check, it also validates it's that person's social security number. So we will do it still if they're going to do FlexPay, but it's only to verify it's the correct number.
But to the extent a customer does not provide a social security number, which we cannot require a customer to do, we cannot require a customer to do. And there's, as I understand the policy as we've revised it, right? You're either going to get the maximum deposit assessed, or you can choose to go to FlexPay, in which case there is no deposit associated with it, right? I'm really doing more of this for myself to see if I was actually.
Oh, it's been there.
The 10 sessions we were in.
But you bring up another, just right now, another question. It may be down the road.
No.
But we've heard on the board about concerns of those that don't have social security that may be
That's right.
just moving into the area, moving into the country often, and have had reliance on a third party entity to help with the establishing of that. In terms of the deposit and that have no fixed financial, but they need an account. Will this be reflected, or how will this be reflected in the new policy? Because you might recall that
I do.
we had.
I do.
They weren't able, but there's another entity, I think Evergy, that afforded the consulate to be the fiduciary for the account.
That's right. And, we actually had a discussion about that during the review of the policy. And, that example, while prominent, represents one example that this utility has ever seen of that magnitude. We've never seen it otherwise.
Really?
And yes,
I'm sorry, but is this a person that doesn't have an I-10 number either? Is that?
I believe in this case, the individual did not.
They didn't have any.
But that is obviously included, I-10 is included in.
In here?
policy, yes.
In our, okay.
As acceptable. But to your point, I do believe what actually BPU offered at that point in time was for a sponsoring individual to actually sign up and be a recognized account holder along with this customer is what BPU offered at the time. I know that, when we get the bits and pieces of information, we don't get all the information all the time, right? And we probably got that somewhere along the way. So this wasn't hey, we're going to shut the door on you because we don't deal with the consulate. It wasn't that. It was, we tried to offer an alternative. And I understand that the responsible, in this case, the sponsoring party didn't want to be responsible for the bill. I mean, we understand that too, right? But this individual was able to obtain utility service across the state line because Evergy did something different because I don't know, are they 10 times the size of BPU? Bill, I don't know. I mean, I know their service territory is almost the entire state of Kansas, so.
So we have, you talking about the average?
Yeah.
65,000 and 67,000 electric customers. They have 1.8 million.
Okay. And so, I mean, they're resourced differently, right? They just are. And not that nobody's empathetic to it. We are empathetic to it. You know that.
So can there be a surrogate, for example, the owner of the property that leases the property, but it's not actually the account holder? We do accept that, even though there's someone else's name on the lease. I mean, would this policy allow for that?
So,
If they're a qualified surrogate, you know, they provide all of their financial information. Can some?
so basically they're a guarantor, but they're not on the hook.
Financial responsibility.
More like a guarantor.
They would be on, if they provide their information, they own let's say someone
And,
typically owns the property, but it's not on the lease.
and sometimes the owners just have the utilities and that's
Right,
part of it.
that's right.
They have the utility.
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
But we would then not need to have the name of the lessee or the person renting the apartment
That's correct.
and their information because.
It would be in the landlord's name.
That's right.
To make sure, because
And-
anybody who's on the lease was the state that is to be, or make application to come through, but that would not be the case if they're
If the owner
owner
was
of the
keeping
building.
in their name.
That's good.
I'm sorry.
And this is, the language in the policy on some of those scenarios is extremely detailed, okay? I know that, and I don't know if you count on words, Rob, but I know we were going for less words in some cases, because in some places in the policy, you know, it was like, but, you know, there were things cobbled together and we were saying the same thing 5 times, right? So we tried to consolidate a lot of that stuff and condense it, but there are very specific examples of property ownership and, you know, who's responsible for what and how that goes about. And if there are things here that, you know, I encourage the board, if there are things here that, you know, you think have not been covered, that's the whole point of going through these things and reading through them and saying, you know, what about this? And, you know, let's address them while we've got this thing open, right? For sure. Okay. Stevie, did you have anything you wanted to add there to that particular discussion?
Let me unmute. No, there's nothing I need to add to that particular discussion, but thank you so much. And I've been hearing it, and I know a lot of those questions that were asked have already been answered in the new written policy. So thank you.
No, you bet, you bet. One other thing I wanted to showcase, like I use that word, we're gonna showcase it. And this is a substantial change to the existing BPU policy. And it goes right along with what we've been talking about with deposits. And I give a lot of credit to the staff because, you know, I know change is hard and our committee, you know, we push them pretty hard on some of these things. And this one in particular, and that is instead of having, there's a lot of discussion about everything that goes into a BPU bill today, right? And not the least of which is if you're a new customer and you've got a deposit, that goes on the first month's bill. So in addition to your charges, your metered rates, your non-metered rates, you know, your UG charges and everything else, you've also got a deposit. Got to pay everything the first month. And so we have added some language in here to spread that out. The default is to actually spread it out over the first 3 months' bills. And if a customer chooses to pay that deposit on the first month's bill, they're welcome to do so, and we can accommodate that. So again, showcasing this because these are areas where, you know, the committee obviously is hearing everything else that the other board members are hearing from the community. And we have been trying to be responsive to what we're hearing from community members on this. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions or comments on that. Good.
So if you want it spread out over the 3 months, do you?
That's the default.
It's the default.
That's the
Okay,
default.
Okay. All right, that answers my
I mean, I
question.
really feel like I'm on my game tonight, right?
I had a concern. I had a concern, Rose.
Yes, sir.
My concern has to do with the service initiation fee,
Yes, sir.
$75.
Yes, sir.
I don't understand why is that necessary?
An account setup fee?
Yes.
Um,
Why is it that big? I think that's quite a bit to, for services, depending on what we're doing, the initial fee. I'm wondering why $75 is necessary.
okay. And I don't know, Lori, if you want to speak to that tonight or can speak to that tonight. It's a valid question, Stevie. We certainly have had the question. And, you know, I equate this in my mind to, this is an activation fee, right? You go and get, you go sign up for Verizon Wireless today or T-Mo or whomever. And I don't know of anyone who's, obviously there's promotions that go on all the time. Utilities don't generally, utilities like water, electric, gas don't typically do promotions like the wireless providers do. So I'm gonna set them aside, okay? But there is a cost of service in this case to actually pay the folks that we pay at BPU to accurately set up accounts in our systems. And that's all I'm gonna say. Lori,
That makes a heck of a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
yeah.
You are on a roll.
There's a lot of Thank you, Stevie. Thank you. And I know that we actually had that discussion though, Stevie, with Lori, and Lori walked us through sort of the math on it from a cost perspective. And so, you know, that was equated to, you know, what is actually shown in our cost of service study that was just done in 2023.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You bet. You bet.
And should I add that you could waive it, set up automatic payments, if I read correctly,
Exactly.
at 4.01.
And I don't like that at all. I
That
don't like
incentive.
that at all. That's the part that I don't like. Thank you. Thank you, because I was wondering, well, the thing is that it should be paid by everybody. It should not be waived for anybody, because it means like we're favoring those who are already being favored by their deposit. So yeah, I think everybody should pay that fee and not just be waived for anybody.
It's an incentive. It incentivizes those that, for the ease of the payment that the utility can expect in the future. And it probably is helpful to whomever has it to not get late fees or incur those other, it's easier to process, I think, to have that. So because it reduces the cost of collection for the utility, it's an incentive to, on the front end, provide that.
The incentive is not to incur those fees for delinquency and reconnection. That's the incentive, David.
I think also though, to the senator's point, and the original piece with there being a cost of the setup, the stamp, I'm blanking on the automatic payments save money for the utility, right? They save staff time because there is less labor that goes into that. And so I think that's a reflection of, this is a thing you can do to make the utility more efficient. So we want to help incentivize that so that it keeps the overall budget down in that one small way.
Okay, so here's my question. So doesn't it require that particular account be followed for a whole year to determine whether or not they meet those standards?
Yes.
So,
it does.
Or at least a year. Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that still requires more work on our part. So if everyone just pays the fee, there's no need to track that as well. So I'm not sure that, you know, there's a real incentive. I'm not sure it's a real incentive.
Okay, and so Stevie, I want to make sure I understand what your specific issue is here. Is the
My-
issue,
Nobody should be waived the fees, my issue. The fee should not be waived for anybody.
well, I am absolutely confident the BPU staff would probably agree with you. But that said, I mean, you know, automatic bank draft fees are a tool that I'm sure you can name me lots of businesses that don't use that as an incentive. However, the vast majority of e-commerce today, that's exactly what the incentive is that's used to ensure timely, accurate payment, right? So it's a no-brainer for, in this case, the utility and any other business, right? It's just automatically taken out of the customer's account. So, I mean, I hear you, and I mean, we can discuss that further when we discuss this a little bit further, if folks want to think through that a little bit more.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
And let me say, I'm open to looking at other incentives that could be provided, Steve. You know, beyond having to be involved with the automatic banking system. I mean, are there other incentives? Because to your earlier point, why was anybody paying it in the first place? And that was, I think, adequately answered, because we incur costs for the service. But maybe there's something creative that you or staff or the board or someone might be able to come up to, which could further incentivize a mitigation of the fee beyond having to be on automatic bank draft payments. I'm open to that, certainly. You know, if there's something else that's going to be mutually advantageous to the new customer and to the utility.
And I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm tracking on that. Can you give me like an example of what you're thinking of, like in a different?
I don't know, but I'm saying I understood what, you know, he's saying
Mhm.
is that it's more advantageous for those who are banking, who have that relationship with the banking institution. It incentivizes those that are traditionally better situated economically. So they get a $75 discount just for doing what is traditional for many of us in terms of purchases.
Mhm.
What about those, arguendo, what he might be saying is, what about those who don't have that relationship
Mhm.
with a regular relationship with the bank, who, you know, may have to go through other means, who are not able to set that up to get that $75 discount.
Sure.
So I don't know what that would be, but I'm open to however else we could find some kind of way to provide or to mitigate $75 beyond those who just have traditional banking means and can afford it.
Yeah, and one thing, you know, that I think all of us, every board member here, every staff member here is, you know, that all of us have a keen understanding of and an awareness of is sort of the income challenges that exist in BPU service territory, right? And so we all have a keen awareness of that. And to your point, there may be people that are disadvantaged because they don't have a relationship with the banking institution that I might have. But so why should they get left out of an incentive like this? I mean, that's what I'm hearing here and understood. And I don't know what the answer to that is. And I also don't know that, I mean, you know, the policy is what the policy is going to be what this board adopts, right? And so we haven't adopted this yet. This is the committee review work, and this is what we're presenting to the full board for its consideration. And I think if we want to think about things like that, one thing I think I would caveat is we cannot address every problem that we could think of. We can't do it in a policy, right? I think that, and we went back and forth on this a lot with staff about language that's used in here. And we made a concerted effort to change some language in here, right? In how we were dealing with some things, because some of it, to some of us seemed like, there was no ill intent about the language at all. But when you read it, you might read it in a manner of it's not very customer friendly, right? It's really not, it doesn't have the customer focus in mind. And so we tried to be intentional about some of this, right? And to that point, we're trying to take a big step forward here and make this set of policies work better for the customers in BPU service territory, particularly the residential customers. I'm just going to say it. We don't have, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not going to. We'll stop there.
I don't know.
Particularly residential.
Now I'm curious. Now,
No, I think we hear more from residential customers than we do from commercial and industrial customers on things like this. I mean, I think that's fair, right? So, and certainly board members hear more from residential customers. So that was, a constant focus of the folks on the committee, for sure. Okay.
my push for this committee, customer service committee, and the policy committee, for that matter, is residential driven. I'll just put it out there. Primarily, those are the ones that I hear from the most.
Sure.
And probably most of us do. So that's my drive.
Well, and even though with, some of the non-residential, see how I'm using the terminology?
Yeah.
The non-residential, we had to clean some of that language up, right? Just because the policy itself was there, the intent was there. But some of it just didn't come through clearly. So hopefully what we've tried to do is make this more clear, maybe than it was in the past. And so to Brett's point he made earlier, if somebody really wants to go online, and I know folks do this, and check the policy and see what it says, that their answer is in this policy. This isn't going to be perfect, but we feel pretty good about where we've come with this document. So.
And so far, so good. It's looking, I did want to ask, though, getting back to the incentive.
Yeah.
I don't want to change anything here, obviously, but maybe getting back to Stevie's point, if someone kept timely, continuous payments for a certain period of time, a year, 2 years, would they have the rebate of the 75 or something like that? They'd meet the same objective of having a bank draft for that year, because that's the time frame that we listed.
I think
if they, were good customers, would they be eligible for that one-time rebate of the service?
Right.
And again, I don't want to add.
Right.
But maybe I'm trying to, I think I hear what Stevie was saying, and I don't know, just thinking outside the box. And also to that end, and we talked about deposits, for those deposits that are placed, at one point in time, there was interest paid?
That's correct.
I don't-
There's statutory interest that's paid.
Okay, so there is
And believe me, we ran the gamut on this. I feel real bad for Lori, but
a similar.
we kept coming back to it.
If we're holding someone's money, there should be.
That's
some
right.
Return.
And that is all in here, and you'll see
And the
statutory reference and
is if they're good customers.
that's right.
Or certain.
And the circumstances under which and the intervals at which these deposits are returned to customers.
Okay.
All of that is in here. So
Thank you.
we did a significant amount of work on that as well.
Okay.
But yeah, to your point about the other, about the incentive for over a period of time, getting a rebate or whatever, I'm absolutely wide open to that. Hadn't even thought of it. And, makes a lot of sense to me. This is a board policy, right? I'm doing this, I'm not looking at staff right now because they're probably wanting to, punch me, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But I do, if that's something the board wants, I think that's something we should consider globally in the work session where we ultimately go through this, get it to the form we want to have to potentially vote on its adoption, if that makes sense. But certainly open to it.
And as someone who's been through this, let me just say that the customer service has been very lenient for, those who have been late. If you, sometimes they've given, I won't speak for them, they're here. But if you've been timely for a year, but you're late once, there's been the waiver of the late fee. I mean, the counter being the case.
Sure.
Of course, then if you did get the waiver of the late fee, if this policy we're talking about were implemented, well, you've blown your opportunity to get the deposit, the $75 deposit back, but you do get that one time and I don't know if that's in here, that how often that courtesy is given to those who've been timely, but have shown for a year that they were, but then they missed, because everybody.
It's not, but again, we're being intentional about language that actually allows the
Right,
staff
right.
to have that flexibility.
As well they should. As long as it's evenly applied,
Right.
that's the whole thing.
And we had a whole discussion about,
Yeah.
okay, does that seem like it's subjective? And I guess in some instances it is, but when we start looking at, and not that we looked at them, but you know, the actual standard operating procedures that the staff uses, and we talked about how those fit in, what really happens on a day-to-day basis, right? And these are the folks right here who can tell us.
Right.
What happens on a day-to-day basis. And so what they've done, you know, is informed us, and that helped us in, you know, really revise the language to try to make sure those two come together and again, allow them the flexibility without seeming like there's favoritism going on, because that's not what it is. There's actually hard, fast rules of hard, fast. I mean, if you've had a year's, you know, you've paid on time all the time. And believe me, I use myself as an example every time. I have no idea. Like, I had to go on auto pay because
Right.
I thought Janetta was gonna, I mean, I was like, I'm late paying it, disconnecting me every week. I don't even know.
I don't know what.
Right, so I got real nervous about it. They're like looking up John's account and I don't know. So I've gone on auto pay, so that's all out for me now.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking for a rebate, but I use myself as an example because it's,
I probably should too.
you know, I'm throwing it out there. A lot of peace of mind for me.
Yeah.
So a lot of peace of mind. But yeah, so, but these are the kinds of things that as you guys look through this, you know, and look through the changes that were made. I know we're all sensitive to this because we all hear from customers about various ways that we implement our customer service policies with respect to their bills and payments and deposits and all the things that are related to that, right? So think about that as you guys are going through this, and please, you know, come back with whatever, but don't hesitate to send, not to me, please don't send it to me, and please don't reply to all. Send it to Angela, send it to Bill. They will get it back to the committee. I don't know that the committee will meet again as the committee prior to the full board meeting, but so we can kind of see the kind of questions and comments you guys have. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. Me.
Okay. So one thing, and this is really my question for staff as I sit here, this came up in an email to me after, I think, maybe our last session. And I just can't remember if we discussed whether or not, are we looking into an option for flex pay customers to pay online versus at a kiosk over the phone? Are we looking at that?
They can pay online now.
Oh, alrighty. So I'll clarify that with its customers. I didn't know. I apologize. Thank you.
The Flex Pay app specifically, not the other. Well, they can pay online. There's other ways, yes.
Thank you. And then, of course, and we had a whole discussion about this, talking about how we can get more real time in application of payments. And that is something that the folks are working toward. I mean, we're not there yet. So if you're paying at a kiosk, I mean, we're just not there yet, technologically, but that's being worked on. And I mean, you know, we didn't have just, you know, our customer care folks in with us. I mean, we had IT in with us for parts of the time and, you know, and talking about all these things and how they intersect. And so folks are working, you know, on a lot of this stuff, again, to sort of bring, you know, the utility, to continually bring the utility forward.
Well, then getting back to what's just been said, if somebody's paying at the kiosk every month, like myself, or getting the mail in prior to the deadline, And they've done that successfully for a year prior to the late. They certainly deserve, I would think, to have some sort of incentive for that 1 year, because it takes a lot more work than having a banking institution that you're able just to log on or to have the auto pay or to reward that effort for a year. They look at a $75 rebate, or something for getting it to the kiosk on time or coming through navigating the mail system.
Right.
It actually made it. So I'm warming up more to Stevie's observation and what potentially might be an idea for us.
I thought you were just warming up to auto. What I heard, you
Then I
want me to mentor you?
Then I thought about it, but then you have to log on. A lot of people don't have, the ability to log on or to have on their.
You have internet on your phone there, buddy?
Of course, but a bank or credit card, have your credit card and or
Bank account?
debit card, a lot of it, I'm fortunate to have one. A lot of people.
I understand.
Haven't, I don't even know.
Well, and I will tell you this, when you guys go into My Meter, as, even the Paymentus, if you were there, you're in My Meter now, whatever. If you guys look at the number of payment options that are available to a BPU customer, I mean, it's like, from my perspective, I'm like, this is like going to a candy store. It's like, it's unlike anything I've ever seen, to be honest. And I think that is something that we need to impress, we as board members need to impress on, constituents and stakeholders in the community, right? We have more payment arrangements, offer longer payment arrangements to our customer segments than any other utility that any of us knows. Okay, so there's that, right? We're trying to be as flexible as we can be on flex pay options, on offering people 50 different ways to go pay your bill and vehicles that they can use. BPU gets a bad rap for this stuff. And when you sit and spend the amount of time that Tom and Brett and I have with the staff on this policy and understand what the day-to-day actually looks like at this utility and how this utility is trying to answer the needs of this particular community, it's stunning, because that is not what any of us hears out there. And so I want that driven home. So I'm going to ask a favor of my fellow board members that you all take this out there into the public, and to the extent you hear anything that doesn't sound right, or maybe you've heard it for 10 years or whatever, and maybe you now know it to be, maybe that's not accurate. Don't ever hesitate to call me. Don't ever hesitate to call staff. Probably them first. They know better than I do. But really, and let's get the right information out there. This utility is trying to be here and trying to meet the needs of its community where it is. It truly is. And I'm not sure before this exercise, I could have said that with such conviction, but I can say it now. So.
I'm glad to hear you say it. I appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service. I know you and the other subcommittee members are woefully underpaid, and giving that extra time to this process is very important, and I appreciate the dedication. I don't know that I would have.
Well, maybe now with my auto pay, maybe I can get a 70 rebate back if I have it on there for like 2 years before, or somehow I bank account. No, but really. And so again, we did not want to go through this line by line tonight, because we know you guys have not had this very long. My apologies on that. I have failed as the chair of the committee to ensure that you all got these in time. I know that we all know we've had a couple of other things crop up in the meantime that we're all contending with as well. So I apologize for that. But I mean, that said, to the extent you guys have had an opportunity to review any of it and have any other questions you want to discuss with the committee at this point and or the staff at this point, I open up the floor and welcome those questions or comments.
Can I highlight a couple other things? Is that all right?
I don't know why you wouldn't.
Okay, well, just as we're flipping through here.
ID yourself.
I'm sorry.
Just so that
Brett
those that-
Parker, board member. Rose touched on this before, but if you go to 5.05, just that refunding of the deposit, kind of done it on a rolling basis now so that people may be eligible for the refund sooner. So on that first sub point. Basically, once they've hit that they've made 22 of their last payment, 24 payments on time, it triggers it, as opposed to maybe they didn't qualify after 2 years and now we wait another year to see it. So if they missed 2 payments in the first 3 months, they were gonna have to wait longer than that to get the refund. And now that as soon as they hit that criteria, they'll be eligible, which I think great discussion and great work all around on realizing that that was feasible and still accomplished the goal. And then, where did it go here? Am I missing where we looked at the waiving of the late payment criteria? We went up to 150% of poverty, and I am blanking on what number that is.
Where's that?
The 1005, is that it? I flipped too far. Oh, you're right. Yes, it is. 1005, and this was something that was already in there, but I really appreciate staff on this too, that if I'm getting this right, for folks who were 62 years of age or older and previously were at or below 100% of federal poverty guidelines, they were eligible for waiving of that late fee. And I think some of the feedback from staff was there are a decent amount of calls here and there that miss that cutoff just barely, but otherwise meet sort of the spirit of that, where someone may be on a fixed income payment. And it's not that they're not making their payments ever, it's just that it doesn't line up exactly with when the bill is due. And so, you know, those two are off. You could potentially be facing a late payment each month. And we had a big discussion about what the best way to try and capture a few more folks in that was. We looked at some of the UG qualifications for some of those things, but ultimately raised it a bit. And then also, I think wisely added in the disability community for that as well, who may be in similar circumstances. So, and then just on the whole, Rose has touched on this before, and I appreciate you starting with some of that debt write-off. I think the challenge in not just the customer service policies, but frankly, all the work that the utility does is we want to have world-class service, and we want to be as flexible and accommodating for every customer as possible. And yet a lot of those things come with financial trade-offs because we don't want to rack up the utility rates for everyone in order to pay for all those things. So I think that was a constant balancing act going through this of how can we do the best for folks without just exploding the, you know, financial liability for the utility. And I mean, look, that's going to be a tension in everything that we do. We set rates of, you know, pretty much any policy that we have. But just know, I think the staff and Rose and Tom and I all had that front and center of we want to do the absolute best we can for folks, but also recognize that anything that is occurring more of that cost or running up that debt write-off piece, ultimately those are costs that the same folks will trying to help have to pay. So I don't know that there's a magic formula to getting that exactly right, but I think everyone was trying to hold that balance front of mind.
I appreciate your comments, Brett, because that's something you get frequently from a customer. They get their one-time social security bill and it just doesn't mesh with the time they can pay. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I think credit to Janetta on that, because you were sitting next to me when we were talking about that. And I know that was some of the conversation was like, yeah, there's some people were just kind of just missing as it was. So
Well, and I
hopefully
need to
fewer
give
of
my
those now.
credit to these people because whenever I have a call, it's usually either revert to land, the owner, or what's my other one? Timeliness of when they can pay. Or they're waiting for their granddaughter to come into town to help them make their payment. You guys have been so helpful with issues like that. I really appreciate that. So I want to make sure I get my 2 cents into staff to really thank you for always helping me with those issues. And someday I'll probably understand revert to owner on those landlords out there that need help occasionally.
You might. With that, I don't have anything else from the committee itself unless, Tom, you have anything you want to add from the committee's perspective at this point? Just understanding that we're going to come back together and review this as a whole. as an entire board.
No, the only thing that in going through, one of the 4 versions that we have, or all of them, will to go to the, cold weather and hot weather rule. I thought that we had made a change to where, on the, to where it would read, any day when the National Weather Service forecasts the temperature will be at or above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, or the heat index will be at or above 105 degrees Fahrenheit. The at or above is not reflected in the versions that I'm looking at. It just says above 95. We talked about that, didn't we?
I think we did.
15.0. 15.0.
Yeah, and so let me caveat, I guess. Finish. I told you guys that, and it's not that we're gonna try to provide you an all new document, although we might, just because there are a couple of loose ends in this document still, all on me, they fall on me. So I apologize again. And I will get that rectified so you guys can view those edits and a clean version, all as one version again. So I will do that.
I can pile on there on this one. As Tom was raising that, and Rose and Tom, tell me if you remember this right. I thought perhaps we also were just striking during the summer months and just making it
Right.
any day that it,
On any day.
because if that's March, it's still
That's right.
the same. Okay,
That's correct.
okay.
That makes sense. What about continuing that line during the period of November 1st through March 31st? I mean, which is the next paragraph. I mean, so putting into statute, putting into the rules, any particular date. So if on Halloween, October 31st, the day before the November 1st, if it goes below 32 for some reason,
Didn't we, when we changed that, didn't we use Evergy's or somebody else's dates for that particular? When we did that, that's what I think, why we use those dates, David.
And that may be true. I wasn't here, but it is the KCC cold weather rule is from November 1st through March 31st, regardless of weather outside of those months. So just if you're in line with something that they're doing, those are the dates. So to your point, Senator, that it can get cold or it can snow in October. And during those, that for Evergy, for Kansas Gas, for Atmos, they are not required to honor any kind of a restriction on disconnections. Now, they can make a business decision, but from a regulatory standpoint, that is not a requirement.
thank you. And to the previous point, are during summer months, the same language that Evergy has regarding the hot weather rule? I mean, the warm weather, hot weather?
So the case.
During summer months, or does it specify dates?
The KCC does not have a requirement on summer months for heat. However, in my experience, now when I was there, it was before they became Evergy and it was Westar, but I would assume similar principles would apply. That it was a business decision, that if the heat was high and the heat index was going to be high, they would make a business decision not to disconnect. There wasn't a hard and fast rule on what temperature that was. And the KCC did not designate what that was.
Thank you.
So, David, I think, I lose count on how many times we've gone over the cold weather. I will leave you this, we looked at all the local utility policy. We've also looked at, the Kansas statute, Kansas regulation. We looked at the Missouri regulation. We looked at investor owned, we looked at municipal unregulated utilities. We looked at our own. So we've adjusted this based on temperature. I think that was the range. And it was, if the temperature is forecasted to be below or above, we've accommodated that to where what the previous board had asked us to do, accommodated all those requests to bring it even more in line with with what the regulated utilities are doing, KCC in particular. So I think, I don't think we've had too tough of a winter, because I will see the, I knew I'd said something to the board, if we get into some really cold periods or some periods to where we're not disconnecting longer than normal, then I would certainly bring that back. Winter hadn't been too bad, this past winter, so I think we're okay.
With that, Stevie or Tom, did you guys have anything else?
No, that was all I had.
I had nothing, no.
Awesome. I think that concludes the presentation on the customer service policy review.
Thank you.
Mr.
I didn't know thank you. Since in Ms. Freeman, if either one of you want to say anything in particular, or Ms. Austin, if you had any further observations or insights, Abby, that you'd like to share, having worked on this.
Thanks. Thank you.
So just housekeeping, we still are not past the goal line yet, so, or to the goal yet, so. Yes. Sheriff, person, would you like to proceed going forward? You want another work session to go line by line through the policies? Or you want an abbreviated meeting? I mean, we've got other stuff out there. I'm just.
Unless there is a consensus, see how I did that, a consensus? To go line by line, no problem if that's a consensus, happy to do it. If folks want to take this, review it on your own and come back and meet, not go line by line, but then conceptually talk about, you've got questions and or comments about specific sections, want further explanation, questions about or whatever, it's the board's preference, certainly not up to me.
I do not want to go line by line.
I've gone line by line, I think 3 times now, so I'm good with cherry picking individual concerns.
Okay. I guess both Tom and Stevie have been through the process already, and I don't either.
Stevie has not. Stevie was not on the committee, so he may want to.
Steve, you still with us, Steve?
Of course, and to think that I would want to do something like that, Ro. No way.
Tom's.
I'm probably the only one who actually wanted to do it, but am perfectly fine not going through it again line by line collectively.
And nor do I, so it's unanimous. I do have one other question though that I have, and 2 things. First, once this is approved, and certainly I hope it will be, the question is this then set in stone, or how often will there be a review? Or will there be another review? Will it be another 10 years? What is, that's one thing. What is the process after it's affirmed, if indeed it is affirmed?
Thank you for asking that. I don't think that there is a set policy, although I think we are working toward, in the strategic plan, I recall us saying the board would like to at least review the policies over which the board has jurisdiction every at least 3 years is what I recall. And that said, we actually let 1 year escape here because when I was first came to the board in 2020, the board at that time was actually undergoing a comprehensive review of this document as well. And so, I was new gal back then, and I kept my mouth real shut back then.
Really?
I know.
I missed that.
They're like, no, she didn't. And it was like last fall because she got on here. But so, this is now the second time since I've been on the board in a little over 4 years that there's been a comprehensive review of policy, just to be clear.
Yeah, David, like the cold weather, when was that? 22. Yeah, and that just came at not the request, but, customers coming in and, it was an issue, it became an issue. So We looked at what other people do and we reviewed that policy and we made changes.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a set, you can't ever change this policy or we wait 2 years to change it. I think when the need arises, and if that's been in my tenure, what's happened, if the need arises, we make the changes that are needed.
So David, to the extent that the utility is in a position to accept crypto in the future, and we need to change that as a mechanism as well, although I think we have it covered in the generic language we already have, perhaps we could open up the document for that.
Good.
Um,
I do have one other question. It's probably in here already, and in 30 seconds or less to explain what I hope is covered, and certainly Gabby and Janetta remember what brought me to the board was a policy regarding late payments or uncollected payments. Full disclosure, could not get action from this board for a past due bill which surfaced that was allegedly 14 years old. I'd had no notice of that bill. It was $600 or $700. And I had been a good payer all along of that, on my other accounts. I had several accounts. And in order to open a new account, which is in here, it always is the policy that they review the SSN and the customer, and everything is clear, as it should be. Well, I had done that several times, many times. However, this bill, this phantom bill, this $600 bill plus popped up from 14 years earlier at a previous property I'd owned. And I would not pay it. Subsequently had all my accounts turned off, called my board member then, and the one who had helped, to get in this office. He said there's nothing he could do. Had many discussions with these two ladies here about it, but I had all my services cut off because of this. Now, by the way, the KCC, the Kansas Corporation Commission, says that any bill, and I'd hope to change this statutorily, that anything that's not noticed up or applied for that's delayed 1 year or more, and the customer doesn't have full notice or working with, is consumed by the utility. That is the policy. I can speak to that with a certainty that if we, the utility, have not gotten in place a means to get that 1 year or over in place, we haven't applied and put it on their credit, whatever, then it's absorbed. It's gone. It's a bad debt that the utility absorbs. That is the policy. So the reason I'm here today is because I thought that was a horrible thing, that $600 that was held at gunpoint that I knew nothing about from 13, 14 years earlier, that I had to go through that. And the board and the staff did nothing about it except to put that on. And I would hope that we would have that incorporated somehow, and it would be 1 year, that if there's no payment arrangement, that we would do that. I don't know if it's in here, what section it would be, but the manifest injustice of that still stings me now, 5 years, like 5 or 6 years later.
I can tell you now that it's not in this policy.
Well, we need to have some policy that speaks to a finite time for the collection of back debt, as the KCC has for other utilities.
Right, so let us state what we believe the state statute and KCC is. Anybody? Can either turn it over to our attorney, I can turn it over to our customer service experts, but I think we have a little bit different interpretation.
I will say this,
Please identify yourself, please.
Janetta Henson. We do have a back bill policy of 3 years. That's a Kansas state statute. And I can state it, that the Kansas state statute is in here, and that's on a back bill. However, if a customer finals account, if a customer leaves, whatever the case may be, they're given notices of their final bill. And so when they're given notices of their final bill, after that, anything, if a customer comes back into our service territory and has not paid that final bill, we provide final bill, so they did get a notice of that bill. Then if a customer comes back into our service territory, we can charge them for that bill that they left. Now, we can only actively collect for 7 years. And that is with our collection agency, and they know they can only actively collect for 7 years. However, after that, we do not have to write that off the utility books. If a person comes back 10 years later, we can't actively collect, and we're not doing that during that time, nor can we have a court case against that person, but we can collect before providing service for that new service. Or if it comes up that there is an outstanding bill, then we can add that to that customer's account. And the years are not limited to that. I did go through that with our attorney. I did go through that with Wendy. And Bill was on that call where you can, as a utility, it's for utility, you can still collect before providing service. Or if they have service, active service, you can transfer that bill to that account.
Angela,
Well, thank you. No,
It's well said.
okay, all right,
Okay.
all right.
Would we not have a policy in place that there would not be granted a subsequent service to a customer with the same social security number or whatever, if there were found in our system some outstanding bill, that would not be, we would not grant service to that customer again?
There's language in this policy that says you have to pay everything that you owe prior to being provided service. So if you have a past bill out there, and certainly the utility is aware of it, you've got to pay it before we'll obligation to receive service.
I believe that's how it should be. And the only thing is that's not how it's been implemented. I for one will tell you, having taken new services several times in that 13, 14-year period, under the same information that was provided for what was considered that bad debt, that was not applied. So that was how I had other accounts in my case that were racked up that were able then all to be disconnected because I refused to pay the phantom bill.
The policy that the board adopts is the policy we're following, okay, and we made several adjustments here. And if that was not the case 15 years ago, I don't know that too many of us was really responsible for putting the policy together at that time. But that's why we're meeting today. That's why we're trying to address any and all issues that come up that we're aware of, that we're certainly balance what we need to do to continue to serve in the community and be more customer friendly at the same time. So I do have a couple of other things. So just for clarity, the next meeting is going to be, I guess, the board is going to review this. If there's any comments, they're going to send the comments back. We'll put it into a final form or one more review or go to the regular session for adoption. Just want to be clear on what the
I
next
needed
step is.
clarity on that as well.
Okay, so the next board meeting is scheduled for September 18th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and at that, do we intend to have a work session before that board meeting regarding the integrated resource plan? That's on a calendar already, so we need to be mindful of that, right? So now we're trying to do the balancing act, right? We've got the budget, we've got to pick your replacement, got a lot of things for it.
So I think it's only an hour meeting for the integrated resource plan. If you want to reserve some time about that,
Here's what I don't want to do is I don't want to put, and maybe the board can provide their thoughts back by the end of, well, that's probably not going to work. Do we have anything specifically scheduled for a work session on October 2nd, which will be the first meeting in October?
Chris has a schedule.
I know we start budget, so.
Yeah, we have revenue and staffing
Okay,
budget workshop.
okay. So we can start that one early, 4:30. For the budget stuff. Can the board complete everything within 30 minutes?
Well, that's what I'm saying is what I don't want to do is unless the board feels comfortable saying, yeah, 30 minutes, that's fine. I mean, I didn't think we'd be sitting here right now.
Right.
So,
Yep.
you know, so I don't know that I'm on this board. I don't know that we can. I want to, but I don't know that we can. So I think we need a minimum of an hour. And, you know, while it's not preferred, if we have to start the thing at 4, at whatever, I mean,
So
But we could turn in concerns
yes.
to one of the committee
No,
members.
you can turn them into Angela and Bill, and they'll give them to the committee members.
We'll give them to you
Previous to
during the
that.
meeting, because if we do it before.
That's right.
So we would give it to me, but the only thing that concerns me is getting in conflicting suggestions, but you know, the staff should not be the arbitrator of
No,
the
that's fair.
suggestions, so I think
We'd have to bring it back into.
it would be better to bring.
Is there any way, could the board consider, you know, an off Wednesday, potentially, we could meet remotely if that helps folks, who have day jobs. You know, we could do a hybrid meet if we had to. Could we meet on a day that's not a Wednesday, knowing everything else that's on the docket for this board? I'm just opening that up as a question to the board.
I think that we could probably meet like we did that one time over lunch, like 12 to 1 or 11:30 to 1 on about any day that would that the other members, especially the ones that are employed, gainfully employed, might have available. So yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with meeting sometime other than just on the Wednesday of our actual meetings.
Other board members?
I can do that.
I'm open to that if, I mean, as long as it's a date that works with my work calendar, but
Right.
and would that be in person or that's still a possibility?
I think it could be a hybrid.
Yeah.
Unless staff is opposed to that.
Nope, we could do,
Stevie, is that okay with you?
I'm good either way.
Okay, so, what we'll do is, I will provide you guys with some dates. And we'll throw it out, you guys throw it out to the board to see if those dates, rather than try to get dates back and forth.
Okay.
Let's do it the other way. Is that okay?
that works.
Let me just share, it's better on a lunch hour that way, because every time we meet before 5, I have to take time off. Anytime we meet during the day, I take time off and I don't mind doing that. I just don't want to do it all the time.
So
I missed that.
she's
lunch is better, Stevie, is that what you're saying?
Your lunch.
Takes a little bit of time off.
Right. Lunch is better.
That's fine.
Okay.
Anything else with regard to the customer policy review?
Is this
I wanted to ask them-
available to us electronically? I mean, if there are. any-
These documents,
Yes.
they were provided to you electronically.
Yes. electronically,
Yes.
so if we-
I asked staff if they could provide hard copies tonight, just for ease.
Thank you. I did have a concern. This was a question that was posed to Mr. Johnson during one of our BPU meetings. This has to do with the disabled and those who required their services to remain on, and I guess given time to pay. I don't know, because of the fact that their physical medical condition required them to have those services. I don't know. Did you ever respond to that particular question, Bill? Or do you recall?
Well, so we do have a medical customer support program,
Good.
and that does allow for an extra month.
Yeah.
Yeah, about an extra 30 days beyond the normal process. So I did tell the board that, once we have a little bit better technology in place, we can look at reviewing that. And, if we needed that, consider adding another piece of equipment or two onto that, we would certainly look in and that and then bring it back to the board or, it's not part of the policy. It's just a program that was implemented years ago. So we could certainly take that up.
So Dennis must be absent from this meeting.
Sorry.
I'm teasing you, Bill. I said Dennis must be absent from this meeting because you said better technology. I'm like, you can't get no better than where we already are, so.
Oh. There's always room for improvement and then there's the automated part behind that I'd still like to see happen as opposed to customers employees issuing these letters that get mailed out and things like that. So we need to take more advantage of the technology we have.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Anything further? I want to thank you really for the review work that you've done as chair on this committee and also the committee that was on this and for the staff and working together to bring this. I think it's comprehensive and it really moves us forward in terms of customer service, which at the very pinnacle is the core of what we do as members of the board. So thank you, Rose. Thank you, Brett, Stevie. Tom on that.
Tom.
What you've done, right, exactly. And Stevie for your input and Mary for your input as we work through this together. Thanks so much. That having been said, if there's nothing else, yeah, Bill?
Yeah, well, on behalf of staff, we want to thank the committee too. So Rose, to you, to Tom and to Brett. This has been much more thorough of an exercise than we've ever gone through. And really, there was a lot of time invested, but it was a tremendous amount of effort needed. And I think policies that will come out that hopefully all the board members will approve is certainly a step in the right direction. And our education now is our takeaway from this now is to educate the community as to what we have here and what we're doing and what we're trying to do. And I think sometimes we come up short with that as a utility. So we'll take that on ourselves, and I know the board will already do that, because I'm just echoing what you've already said before. So Rose, thank you for not only all that effort, thank you for your compliments tonight. None of us could have said that any better than what you did. So
No, I appreciate that. I mean, look, you get in the trenches and you do some things, right? Nobody wants to go through this thing line by line, but everybody in here
right,
multiple times went through this thing line by line and the document's better for it. So, that takes commitment. So thank you, guys.
So that's
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Or anybody says anything.
all right.
Roll call. Roll call. Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Wakes,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.